What's up, Blender Savages? So today on Blender Savage, we will learn how to use the graph editor. And we're going to use the graph editor to create a bouncing ball animation. And then we're going to sneak in there some principles of animation. We'll start out with the swash and stretch. Ease in and ease out. So let's begin. Alright, so let's get started. What we're going to do here is first delete the default cube, like every lesson in Blender. X key delete. And I don't like using those tools there. T to hide that. Alright, so next I'm going to bring in the plane. And this plane here is going to be my floor. And then I'm going to make it 15 times bigger. So Shift A, Mesh, Plane. S15, Enter. There it is. Let me zoom out. Now I'm going to bring in a UV sphere. That'll be our bouncing ball. And I'm going to move it up along the Z axis by 0.5 Blender units. And then I'm going to scale it down in half. So Shift A, Mesh, UV sphere, here it is, there it is, halfway into our plane there. Now let's bring it up a bit, GZ, 0.5 enter, and now let's scale it down in half, S.5 enter, there we go, it's cool. Alright, and let's see what's next. So I actually have here an instructional handout. If you are interested in this handout, link in the description below. You can actually get it on Amazon here. Right now I currently have a digital copy for $2.99. If you have a Kindle Unlimited account, you can read it for free. Cool, free 99. If you're one of my students, don't bother buying this. You're in my class. You get a free copy. All right, so it looks like now I'm going to go over to the timeline panel, pull it up a bit so we can see it a lot better. All right, here's a timeline panel down there. And I have a little numbers here. Those are the frames. So I want to pull it up. There we go. So now I can see the keyframes in there. Currently, right now, my frame range is from 1 to 250. That's how many frames are in my animation. It's 24 frames per second, so it's about a 10-second animation. Animating 10 seconds actually takes a good while, depending on what you're animating. You could be animating for like an hour or two. But I'm going to reduce this down to 120 frames. So I'm going to click on N right here, 120. And you'll notice this darker area is going to eat away over here into 120. Enter. There it is. Cool. So it kind of looks like everything shifted away, shifted over to the left. So what you can do is hover your mouse inside the timeline panel here, hit the home key on your keyboard. The home key is actually over by page up and page down. It's in between the letter keys and the number pad, right above the arrows. All right, and that's commonly used over in the graph editor as well. You can use the home key there. It works in a lot of the editors. All right, so here I am at frame 1, and I'm gonna start keyframing the bouncing ball here. Keyframe the location and scale, not the rotation. We're gonna do that later. First, we're just gonna keyframe the location and scale, and you'll see why later. So I'm going to start with frame 1, and then keyframe 30, 45, 60, etc., etc. And we're not animating the ball, we're just keyframing. What this is going to do is create a holding points or pins for a curve, for a graph editor curve later. Animation curve, F curve, that's what they call it. Alright, so here you have the ball selected, the UV sphere. I'm at the I key while my mouse is in here, and I get an insert keyframe menu. And I'm going to go with location scale. So be aware of the location of your mouse, because if your mouse is down here on the timeline panel, you hit I get something else. This is for the timeline panel. So I want to edit the ball over here. I want to keyframe that. So frame 30, all right, I key, oh sorry, mouse over here in the 3D viewport, I key, location scale, and then we're frame 45, I key, location scale. So I can keep going back and forth. I can also just copy these. I can copy these keyframes. So right now I have all 3 selected. I can tell because I have this yellow triangle here, this yellow diamond. And this bar right here, this yellow bar that goes all the way across, is telling me that there's no transformational changes or no animation changes in between keyframes. They're just the same. So I'm going to select this one here, drag select. There it goes. Control C copy. You want to drag select. Don't click on it, because if you might have multiple transformations that have been keyframed, if you drag select it, you select all of them there. So I have it selected there. And now with my mouse down here, I'm going to hit Control C copy. All right, so now I have a copy. And I'm going to go over to frame 60. 60 there, and I'm going to paste it right there, Control V. There it is, cool. So the same hotkeys that work in the 3D viewport are also going to work down here in the timeline editor, and pretty much every editor in Blender. So now we're at 70, then 80, 85, Control V, 80, 85, Control V, and then 90, 93, 96, Control V, and one more, Control V. You can also use this right here. You can type in a frame, and then your playhead goes there. That's what this little blue thing is, the playhead. Alright, and you can also click on these arrows here. If you move the mouse away, it disappear, but once your mouse is in there, you can change it there. Alright, so I want to verify I got all the frames here, 1, 30, 45, 1, 30, 45. So it doesn't say 1 there because that was done in a previous step. 60, 70, 80, 60, 70, 80, 85, 90, 93, 96. Cool. So I got them all there. And notice as they get further towards the end, the keyframes actually get closer together, and that's because creating a bouncing ball animation, and as the ball bounces, it loses energy, so the curve gets smaller and smaller. And then also at the end right here, there's nothing going on, and that's because we want to have a complete story here, so we're going to bounce the ball, and then the ball just comes to a complete stop, and it's a lot more satisfying to see the ball come to a stop than the ball still bouncing, being mid-bounce during the animation. So it's going to create something different. All right, so now I'm going to go over and bring in the graph editor. All right, so I'm going to bring in the timeline panel up higher, even more. Oops. So you want to hover your mouse in between the two panels. So you have the 3D viewport, timeline panel, and you want your mouse cursor to become a double-sided arrow like that first. So earlier I kind of went a little fast, so I didn't get what I was looking for. But I want this first, get the double-sided arrow. There we go. And now you can drag. Hold down the left mouse button and drag up. There it is. Cool. So I made it a little wider. Maybe too high. There we go. And now I'm going to bring in another panel, and that panel is going to become the graph editor. So to bring in another panel, you want to hover your mouse over one of the corners. So these are corners. Corners are right angles. This whole line right here, that's an edge. That's not a corner. This one going up and down, that's a whole edge. So these are the corners. There's corners there, corners there. Those are the corners. Also notice when I pulled up this panel, I did this away from all these other buttons. That way I don't accidentally click on them. I don't want to do that. All right, so I'm going to go over here, bring up the timeline panel, bring in another panel. And to do that, you want to make sure your mouse becomes this plus sign that I have down here, this plus sign symbol. So hover your mouse over the corner, get the plus sign symbol, hold down the left mouse button and drag up. Cool. You might be wondering what happened to my keyframes. They're still there, except that earlier I accidentally selected the plane here. So I want to select the UV sphere. There we go. So now they're back. There they are. All right, so down here I have another timeline panel. Let me bring it up higher. I just want the keyframes are visible, but I want this to be the graph editor. So in the top left-hand corner, right here, you see a clock icon. You can click on it. You get this drop-down menu, and you can choose something different. So I'm going to click there and go with graph editor. There it is. Now the icon there is a graph editor. Every panel is actually going to have an icon on the top left. If you click on it, it gives you the option to change it to something else. So you have a graph editor there again. But this is going to be my 3D viewport. There we go. All right. All right, so down here in the graph editor, I have some lines in there. Let me zoom in. Well, these are actually curves. So here's the blue one here. It's at 0.5. That's because that's where my UV sphere is. It's a little bit above the, actually it's touching the plane, but the pivot point, that yellow dot there, is 0.5 blended units away from the origin, which is down there where the plane is at. Also, if you go over here to object properties, you can see here what's being keyframed. It's in green. So far, keyframe the location and scale. Also, hover your mouse inside the 3D viewport window. You can hit the N key for Nancy, and then you get the same thing right there. You can use that one as well. And right here, these diamonds are also telling me there's keyframes there. So if you click on one of these, it keyframes it. All right, so here I am. Here's the graph editor. So here we have a bunch of numbers up there. These are all frames. So for each frame here, there's a corresponding frame in the timeline and the overall animation. And this blue thing right here is called the playhead. You can move it. So you can hold down the left mouse button and drag it, drag and drop. Let's put it right here, frame 1. As you can see here, here's my keyframes. Let me hit A right here. And see now they're all highlighted over here. So let me click in here again. I'll just click in here to deselect. So all these little black dots have a corresponding keyframe in the timeline. So there's frame 1, keyframe 30, keyframe 45, 45. See, there we go. So that's the X right here on the 3D viewport. Sorry, in the graph editor. So in the 3D viewport up here, we have 3 axes, right? So 3 dimensions, we have Z up and down, X left and right, Y forward, back. But in the graph editor, we just have 2 dimensions. So in the graph editor, the X axis is going to be the frames. And then the Y axis right here, it's going to be a transformational change. So if I want to make something move along the Z axis, I'd have to move it here in the positive direction. If I want to make it go up on the Z axis. If I want to move something right on the X axis, I'd also have to make it move up right here in the Y axis for the graph editor. So the Y here in the graph is, in a way, it's kind of like up and down. It's still forward back in the 3D viewport. Just in the axis, in the X axis, is showing change either in a positive or negative direction for rotation, scale, and location. So let's get more into that. So on the left side here of the graph editor, we have the channel region. I can actually expand this. See these little arrows right here? I can expand it. There it is. So far I've only keyframed the location and scale, and that's why I have these transformational changes that are visible to me. That's the only things I've keyframed. So I have not keyframed rotation yet. That we'll do at the end, or towards the end we'll do that. Right now I want the ball to go up and down. So that's a change on the Z axis. So I got to change the Z curve. There it is. So I have the Z curve selected there, but all the other curves are right there, right below it. But I only want to use this one. So I'm going to isolate this one. See this eyeball right here? You can actually click and it'll hide it. So I'm going to hide all of them except for the Z one. There it is. You can also just lock them, but I don't want them getting in my way, so I'm going to just close them. They're still there. They're just hidden right now. And I'm going to go to the first frame right here, and then I'm going to move that point right here on the curve. I'm going to move it up, and it's going to move my ball up here up. So to see the ball go up, see the transformational change, and click on the ball there. If this happens, it'll happen often where you lose your keyframe. Just select the UV sphere again. It comes back. So I need to go to to frame 1 so I can see the animation change there. Here we go. Have that frame there selected. And I can hit G for grab while I have the mouse down here. See, there's the ball already going up and down. You can see it there is moving on the graph editor. So if I go in the positive direction, it goes up. If I go in the negative direction, it goes down. So this lighter blue line there in behind the curve in the graph editor is is 0. And I want to go up by 15 blender units. So I'm going to type in 15 and then Y. There it is. So I did that with my mouse cursor in the 3D viewport. So I move my ball here 15 units up on the Y axis for the graph editor. And if I look over here, my transformational change is telling me what's going on. So I'm at 15.5 there for the UV sphere on the Z axis. All right, so we want an animation curve of a ball bouncing. So we need the curve to go up and down, just like what we have over here. Let me go over here, Z axis. Sorry, Z location change. So we want this. We want something like this to represent the ball bouncing, right? All right, so back over here to the handout, which you can find on Amazon. I'm going to go over to frame 45. So I'm going to skip a frame. So every other frame, I'm going to bring the ball up. But according to physics, once something is dropped, it cannot retain energy to go up higher than the original height. And every bounce is going to be less than the previous bounce. It's not going to bounce up as high. So I'm going to go to frame 45 and hit GY 11 enter to bring it up by 11 blender units. So right here, see I skipped the frame over here to the next frame. If you're wondering what these other little dots are, those are just handles. So you can use it to manipulate the curve. But undo, Control Z undo. We're not going to mess with those right now. So I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to bring it up by 11 units there. GY 11 enter. There it is. And the ball's still in the same place because we're at frame 1. So I have to go over here to these other frames. There it is. And you can see the change there. There we go. So, and then afterwards, there's nothing. So it just stays flat. So you can see there. So for whatever happens here in the graph editor, there's a corresponding transformational change in the 3D viewport. All right, so over to frame 70 here. Frame 70 is GY 7 enter. GY 7 enter. Here it goes. And then 85 GY 3 enter. GY 3 enter. There it is. And then the next one down here at 93 GY 1 enter. 93. There it is. Let me click on it there. GY. What was it? 1 enter? Oh, I forgot honestly. There it is. GY. Cool. Let me zoom out of here. I can hit A over here to select all. Then hit the home key on my number pad, and it zooms and centers that as well. There it is, play button. So here's the ball bouncing. All right, cool, so we got a bounce. It just looks kind of weird, right? So it kind of like slows down and it kind of just speeds up like midair. So it looks a little funny. So we'll fix that in a bit. All right, so back over here to the handout. We're actually gonna select all the keyframes that are at the bottom here, all the dips in the curve. So I'm gonna click on this one first. There it is. And you can do this while the animation is playing, it's fine. Let me zoom out a bit. And you can also do a pan. You hold down the middle mouse button, and you can slide around like this. All right, so I clicked on that one. I'm going to hold on Shift so I can multi-select. Click on this one here, this one, and then I think this one that we selected. Yeah, I guess we selected 2. I'm going to click on that one as well. There it is. All right, so what I'm going to do is change the appearance here of the curvature. I'm going to make the bottom parts here sharper so that the ball moves a lot faster when it goes up and down. What we're actually doing is the ease in and ease out. So right now what happens is that it eases in and then it eases out slow. It starts out slow, then it speeds up. And then when it's approaching another keyframe, it starts to slow down before it gets there. What we want to do is when it bounces to be very dynamic. We don't want it to slow down. We want the speed to be constant. We want the appearance of it slowing down when it's at the top. So you're bouncing a ball and at the top it kind of seems to float for a moment. That's what it's doing right now, but we don't want that floating appearance at the bottom. So that's why we're going to make these a lot sharper. So by selecting the dips here, now I can edit them. So I'm going to hit V, and I'm going to change the handle types to vector, and it's going to sharpen them up for us. See, there it is. So now I have this different looking curve, right? So here it looks a lot sharper, and then the bounce looks a lot neater. See, it almost looks like it's just being pushed off the ground. boom, boom, boom. There it is. Cool. Still looks very stiff, very, very hard, right? So that's where the squash and stretch comes in. So now we have the ease in and ease out. So went to the top, slows down, and then here at the top it goes a lot faster. And the speed here is constant as well. All right. And so now I want to do the X location change. So before I do the squash and stretch, I want to move it from the right side of the X over to the left. So I'm going to pause this here, go over to frame 1, and I'm going to hide the Z location curve there and open up the X location curve. There it is. Let me go to my bowl here and select it. Cool. All right. And let me click on the X location there. There it is. So I clicked on it there. That means I have the A over here. There it is. And that's the X location curve. So it's at 0 because the X hasn't been changed. The X is still at 0, nothing's done. So if I hover the mouse on here, G for grab, see, you can see it move there. So I move the curve. But what I want to do is just have a constant, steady change from point A to point B. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring up the curve and rotate it a bit. So right here, I'm going to pull it up by 5 blender units. G, Y, 5 enter. There it is. You know, have it play in the meantime. All right, so you can see I already moved it away from the origin. It's 5 on the positive direction for the X-axis. You can see it over here too, the transformations. All right, so now I'm going to scale it out, make it a little bit longer. And this way the ball will continue to move even after it stops bouncing. So if it's a rolling ball, it's bouncing, eventually it'll stop bouncing and then give you a little bit of a roll. So I'm going to scale it up by 20%. S 1.2 enter. There it is. Make it a little wider. And now I'm going to rotate it a bit, just by 7 degrees. So I can get the ball to move from point A to point B. Because right now, here's the Y-axis for the graph editor. The value is 5 all the way across. That's why the ball here is stuck at 5 on the X right here. So I'm going to hit R, 7, enter. There it is. So now we can see the change there. All right, so it starts over here at, let's see, X is 9.3 something. And you can zoom into it right here. You can see a keyframe 1. It's almost at 10, so it's like 9 point something, right? And then we get closer to the origin over here. And then you'll see the ball move from this point here and closer to the origin there to 0. Moving over to 0 over here. And there it is. Cool, and then it stops bouncing and it moves a little bit more. Cool, so that adds a little bit more life to our animation right there. There we go, so we're on a roll. All right, so now we're gonna do the spin. We're gonna do the spin. All right, so we took care of the key things, which was the bounce and then the distance traveled in the bounce. Now we gotta rotate it. So to rotate it, we're just gonna do 2 keyframes. We're gonna keyframe at 1. We're gonna rotate it a bit. Go to the last frame where it stops rolling, and we'll rotate it there as well. All right, so I'm gonna start at frame 1 right here. Let me pause it. Go to frame 1, and over here in the 3D viewport, I'm gonna hit 1 for front view. There it is. So I can see a little bit of the plane here. So the ball's over here starts on this side. So if it's going that way, then I'd have to move from front view. It'd have to move counterclockwise, so in the opposite direction of the clock. So here I'm at 1 for keyframe 1. Put the mouse over here 1 for front view, and then I'm just gonna hit I. And oh, sorry, I need to rotate it first. So R for rotate, and just rotate it counterclockwise, maybe like a couple times. Click. And I'm going to keyframe that. Now, yeah, I can see here that it changed on the Y there. I key, and just rotation, rotation, rotation. There it is, rotation. And now I have another set of channels there in my channel region for the Y rotational change. So, all right, so I keyframe that, and now I'm going to move forward over here. So one of the last frames here where it stops rolling. Looks like it's frame 106. 106, and there it is. Move the player to 106. Let me zoom into it. And I'm going to rotate it a few more times, also counterclockwise. We got to keep going in the same direction. And this is 1 for front view, R, and just do a few more rotations. The more rotations you do, the faster it's going to spin, so it just depends how much spin you want. If you do a lot of rotations, it's going to look very aggressive. You know, just maybe you don't want that. So I'm at the I key here, and rotation again. There it is, cool. And then I can hide these, and then just activate the whatchamacallit, the Y one right here. Let's see, A to select all. Where is it at? I don't see it. There it is, way down there, way down there. See, I'm gonna hit the home key, and it'll zoom and center it, and it changed the resolution too. So now the units here jump by, looks like by 500. Hit the home key. I'm at the home key again later to readjust it because now it's a little bit off. But there's a curve showing the roll. Let's see, play button. Watch the animation here. There it is. So you can't really see the roll too much, so you can see it there towards the end. Since it's a spherical object, spherical things when they're spinning, a little hard to see. So I'm gonna pause that, and I don't have to worry about the rotation anymore. Rotation's done. It's set. Now I'm going to go back to Z location. I'm going to close all these eyeballs, open Z location there. And let me zoom out. Let me try going up here. See, now if I try zooming in, the curve doesn't look like it looked like earlier, right? That's because the resolution of it changed to accommodate the large rotational transformations. So now I select the Z axis here, A to select over here. And their curve is still there. It's just the values here are a lot different. See, now they're jumping by increments of 100. Hit A to select all, then the home key again. And there it is. Now it went back to normal. It's the same thing. It's just the units just changed on the left side, so it looks a lot better. All right. So what I'm going to do next is do the stretch. And I'm going to activate Autokey, this button right here. This will keyframe the stuff for me, so I don't have to worry about about having to hit I every time I keyframe something. It looks like I hit my timeline, but make it a little bit more visible there. All right. So usually what happens in animation, I don't know if this happens in real life, but right before you get to the bounce, right before your ball hits the surface, it stretches. That's how they teach it. All right. So you want to get over here to somewhere near the dip on the left side of the first dip right there. Move your timeline, your playhead right there, right next to it. So here I am, one for front view. The plane is down there, you just can't see it because it's flat. So you can be 1, 2, 3 frames away from it. I'm gonna go maybe right there, 28. And I'm gonna scale this. I'm gonna hit S and then Z 2 times. 2, and then enter. The reason I hit Z 2 times is so it scales along its own Z axis, not the global Z axis, just its own Z axis. Another cool thing about this is because we have the rotation there, the stretch is also gonna rotate. And to the animation, when you create a bounce animation, the stretch is not rotating. It's actually pointing in the direction that it's going to bounce into. But since it's 3D, we have the advantage of us rotating the stretch, and it'll help us to view the actual rotation of the sphere of the ball bouncing there. All right, so now I'm going to go over to the next frame here. So here in the handout, it tells you which frames to use. But as long as you're near the dips here, we should be fine. And right now we're just doing the stretch. We'll do the squash later. All right, so I'm going to stretch this one here. S to enter. ZZ. There it is. Cool. So the sequence, the only thing that matters in the sequence is that S is hit first and enter is hit last. So hit S, ZZ to enter, or S to ZZ enter. The first time you hit Z, when I go SZ, it tries to scale it along the global Z axis. And the second time I hit Z, it's the ball's own Z axis. And since it's rotating, the Z axis is going to keep changing. All right, S, ZZ to enter. Oops, right click. So I made a mistake here. I did this when my mouse cursor was in the graph editor, so then it tried to scale the graph. So make sure you're aware of the location of your mouse. SZZ to enter, there it goes. And thanks to Autokey, it's recording all these keyframes for me. SZZ to enter. Over here to the next step. SZZ to enter. Next step. SZZ to enter. There we go. So let me zoom in right here, get a little tight. And on this one, I'm going to make the stretch a little bit less. See, as you can see here, they get incrementally smaller. So I went a little bit ahead of myself there, but it's all right. So I'm going to go with S.5 on this one. SZ 1.5 enter. All Z again. There it is. And then this one right here. SZ Z 1.25 enter. There it is. Cool. All right, so I'm at the play button here. So you can see the stretch there. There it is. Cool. So we just got to add the squash. So the squash is a little trickier to make. All right. So also, while you have Autokeying on, make sure you don't go around moving stuff around or editing because it's going to record all that. Maybe you don't want to animate that. All right, so I'm going to pause it. And I'm going to go to my first dip right here on the actual keyframe there for the dip. And I'm going to squash the ball. I'm going to hit one for front view and me zoom in. There it is. And I'm going to hit S, ZZ, 0.5 enter. There it is. And so now it doesn't look like it's squashed, right? It's kind of standing up. So I got to rotate it and then bring it down onto the plane, which is going to be on the red line. So here I am still with Autokeying on. I'm at frame 30. I'm going to hit R for rotate and rotate in the same direction as your other rotations, which currently right now is counterclockwise. So right about there, click. G for grab and bring it down on the plane. It's okay if it goes through a little bit. It's fine. It's fine. Let me go over to the next one over here. And then S, ZZ, 0.5 enter. R for rotate against the clock, counterclockwise. G for grab, bring it down a bit. There we go. Next dip over here. Hold down middle mouse button. Oops, going from view. Shift. Hold down middle mouse button. Pan over. S, Z, Z, 0.5 enter. R rotate counterclockwise. Click. G for grab, bring that down a bit. It doesn't have to be super perfect. See, it's a little bit off. That's fine. But from afar, no one's going to notice. S, Z, Z, 0.5 enter. R for rotate counterclockwise, bam. G for grab, bring that down, bam. And then the last one right here, we're just gonna leave it as is because that's where the bounce stops. All right, let me zoom out, turn off the record button there, and play button. And there we go, there we go. Cool, see, you can see the squash and stretch right there in action. Nice, I like it. All right, let's see what's next. So we got the squash, we got the stretch right there, rotating against the counterclockwise against the clock. All right, so now we're gonna start coloring this. First, to smooth it out, I'm hit the decimal key right here to zoom and center the UV sphere. So I have the UV sphere selected. Right click it and go with shade smooth. See, it's nice and smooth now. Let me hide this. There we go. And auto keying is off. All right. And now I'm going to color it, but I need to be able to see my colors. So I'm going to go hit the Z key here in the 3D viewport and select either rendered or material preview so you can see your materials. So I'm going to be rendered. Gives me a preview of the final product. There it is. So I got this nice gray clay-like color here. Nice. All right. So I'm going to go here to the 3D viewport, click on materials, the red marble there. New. And I'm just going to color it red, like a red bouncing ball. Shift R-E-D. Oops. Hit caps lock. There it is. And then down here in base color, click inside the white bar and choose a red color there. There we go. And maybe even color the plane. It's up to you guys if you want to color the plane. Maybe I'll make it like a light green color, like a pistachio green. Pistachio. I don't even know how to spell pistachios. There's pistachio green. Does that look like pistachios? Something. At least pistachio ice cream. All right. So we got the colors there. Got the bowl. All right. Let's go ahead and change the lamp here. I'm going to click on my light. Right now the light is a point light. Has properties similar to a light bulb or a candle. I'm going to go with an area light, which has properties similar to a monitor, a TV screen, a cell phone screen, something like that. It's just a little bit wider. It's not as strong, so I have to check up the strength on that too. So click on the lamp, go to lamp data over here, green light bulb. You won't see that unless you have the lamp selected. See if I have mesh selected, I get a green triangle. So click on the light there, green light bulb, over to area. There it is, cool. And I'm gonna bring it up by 15 blender units, GZ 15 enter. There it is, that way it's above the bowl there. And I'm gonna bring the strength up to 5,000 watts. So here's the power, it says 1,000, let's go 5,005, 1, 2, 3, enter. There it is, it's brighter. And I'm gonna hit one for front view and make that my new camera view. One for front view. Let me zoom out a bit there. Guess I can tuck these down a bit more now, right? Control alternate 0. This is my new camera view. Cool, there it is. Let me click on my camera frame. G for grab when I'm going up, GZ. And let's get a better view like that. Let me zoom in there. Hit the play button, see how it looks here. And there it is. Whatever view you want to go with, that's fine. I'm just going with this view here. That way I can see the whole animation there. There it is. You pause it, go to frame 1, I click on this one, takes me to the first frame. So the ball's there, I can still zoom in some more. G, ZZ. G for grab, pulling it down, play button. There it's cool. So I got the whole animation there inside the camera frame, so you can see where the ball starts there. Seems to appear pop out of air. Just self-manifest out of the air there. Alright, so I'm going to go over here to the render tab, and I'm going to activate these render aids to improve my animation. Here's the render tab, activate ambient occlusion for improved shadows. Just click on the box to the left of it. Bloom for some of that glow light, little fuzzy light. Screen space reflections, improve my reflections. And let's see an example of that. So here I have the ball there, next to the plane. Let's get closer to the plane. There it is. I'm going to activate screen space reflections. You might be able to see some of the green there bounce off on the ball. There it is. See, you can see it right there. You see the reflections that are activated. Motion blur, so I get a little bit of that blur effect from fast moving objects. And then all I have to do is render it. Alright, so over here the output tab, the one that looks like a printer. Change the video format to MP4. So to do that, go with FFmpeg. And the reason I like MP4 is because it's a universally used file. I mean, you can upload MP4s to YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Alright, container right now is Matroska, so it's still not MP4. I have to change this one right here. Right now it's just give me an option to choose different file formats. So this is MP4 right here, MPEG. So it's just container, click on Matroska there, change it to MPEG 4, and now it's an MP4. You can click on this folder here to choose a location and a name for your render video. Alright, so I already chose a name for my file and where to render out to. Alright, so back over here to the graph editor. See, I have nothing there now because I don't have the UV sphere selected. There it is selected. Just a quick overview real quick. So on the left side here we have our channel region, and over here is our graph. Obviously, there's more to it. You have all these tools here, and a key for Nancy. You have modifiers we can also use to manipulate our graph. But hopefully this gives you a good overview of how to use the graph editor and gives you the confidence to go on and look at some other tutorials where they use the graph editor. Now to render this out, render animation, and wait patiently for the animation to render here. There it is. You can already see the motion blur there. It's rendering every individual frame. It's going to stitch it together. You can see the blur there. If you don't like that blur effect, you can just turn it off and render out another one. Here we go. In a moment, we'll see this bouncing ball animation completed. Here we go. There's the bouncing ball right there. Boom. That's one of my favorite internet personalities would say. And there you have it. Hope I don't get in trouble because I pronounce it a little different. So it wouldn't be exactly the same like the tipsy bartender. All right, but there you go. There's the bouncing ball animation. Got the rotation there. You got some of the reflections there. Cool. I like it. All right. Thank you for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel. If you like this video, want to see more stuff like this, give me a like, give me a comment, subscribe, give me a share. Anything helps. Thank you. Have an awesome day. Take care. Bye.